everyone. Welcome to Lecture 2 of Chapter 8. And as I've been doing typically with the start of every chapter recording, I want to just review a little bit of what we covered last time. So in Lecture 1 of Chapter 8, we learned about the single sample t-test and the independent t-test and a lot of the dependent t-test, but we didn't cover all of the dependent t-test just yet. So just as a quick reminder, with the single sample t-test, we are comparing the mean of a sample for which we have the raw scores, right? So we have a group of participants and we've got their raw scores, we calculate X bar, and then we compare it to some other number, which is called the constant. And the constant is not just something that is pulled out of thin air. The number that you choose for a constant is based on your research question. You want to compare X bar to something. Well, what is that something that will answer your question? And so we gave the example of are this semester's grades any different from previous grades? And so we have this semester's grades. We have that raw data. We calculate X bar. And then we want to compare it to last semester's grades or previous semester's grades. And so that number becomes our constant, right? Then we looked at the independent t-test and we talked about how with this test, you're comparing two means, two X bars. One comes from one group and the other mean comes from another group. All right, so the distinction between the independent t-test and the single sample is that with the single sample t-test, you only have one set of raw scores, whereas with the independent t-test, as well as the dependent, you have two sets of raw scores. And so you're able to calculate X bar 1 for group 1 and X bar 2 for group 2, and then you compare those two means. Same thing over here. All right, so that's why I said remember T for 2, because every t-test compares two things. This is a sample mean to a constant, and these are two sample means here being compared and two sample means here. Okay? Now, so far, independent and dependent t-tests are the same until we get down to this level here, where we talk about the fact that if you are running an independent t-test, it means that your independent variable is between subjects. All right, so here the IV is between subjects. This means that the people who are tested in group 1 are not the same people as those who are tested in group 2. So Peter, Paul, and Mary in group 1, remember that group and level mean the same thing, level 1, group 1. And what did I say? Peter, Paul, and Mary, so this could be Tom, Dick, and Harry. They are different people. Whereas in the dependent t-test, you could have the same people tested in each group. In other words, the independent variable can be, can be within subjects. So if the independent variable is within subjects, it means that the people here are identical to the people here. So Peter, Paul, and Mary are tested in group 1. Peter, Paul, and Mary are tested in group 2. Now, I did throw in a little bit of a surprise last time, and I said it is possible for the people here to be different from the people here. In other words, you might have Peter, Paul, and Mary here, Tom, Dick, and Harry there, and yet it's still a dependent t-test. And I said that you can run a dependent t-test as long as you have paired or matched. Use that a technique called pairing or matching. And that is where we left off because I didn't have time to explain what do we mean by pairing and matching. So why is it that you can run a dependent t-test as long as you've paired or matched people? So we're going to learn about that today. In fact, we're going to conclude Chapter 8 today. Before we move on, let me just explain this last one. The criteria for saying something is significant is the same for an independent and a dependent t-test, as well as the single sample. As long as your sig value is less than 0.05, then your test is significant, right? And that's true here, here, and up here. Now, if the test is significant, up here we can say for the single sample t-test that the mean of our sample is different from the constant, probably, right? The test is significant, and then we're concluding that the X bar is probably different from 0. And then you would want to say, is it higher? Is it lower? That's important. So over here with the independent and dependent t-tests, if you get a significant t-test, then you're saying that the means probably are different from each other. And then you would want to say which group had the higher mean or which group had the lower mean, right? And that's true for both tests. So recall that when a test is significant, that's not when you throw in the word probably. It's not the case that a test is probably significant or probably not. It is what it is. It's when you talk about the conclusion of the test, like what are you going to say then about your particular study? That's when you have to throw in the word probably. Okay, so we talked a lot about so many other things that there's no way I can review them all. But please go back and listen to that lecture again if it was confusing to you.